Ladies and gentlemen, aliens and earthlings, welcome to another walk on the wise side with me, your host, Prash K, and this lovely lady to my right in this stunning orange outfit, the lovely Sneha Ramji. Sneha, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
She does that so nicely on cue. Did you notice that? All right, folks. Let's dive into this, folks. If you're hearing this, tune in, share some love, and get ready. Make some notes, and we want your questions ready for this. Hi, Manju, Rashmi, Jazz, Marianne. Hola, ¿qué tal? Buonasera. Great to have you guys on board.
Hi,
We've got people from
guys.
Spain and Europe. It's awesome to have everybody on board with us. Thank you so much, folks. I want to take a moment to acknowledge all the wonderful people who are joining this from so many different places are out there. We have people from Australia too. So it's just a real pleasure to know that these messages are going out all over, and wisdom is spreading. And it just tells us the wisdom is viral. We need it. It's what we need more of. It's the fine wine that we're not getting. It's the fresh air that we need and we don't get. And it's that chair that you need it when you've been standing all day. And that is what this show is all about, bringing you that emergency, much needed wisdom that solves problems and heals minds and hearts. So I'm really excited that you guys are with us. Allow me to introduce our very special guest, Sneha Ramji. Sneha has a very unusual background because she comes. Firstly, she's not from the UK. She is an immigrant. She moved here some time ago. She has had a very interesting corporate career in media, in accounting, in finance, in the city. She's got siblings, family responsibilities. She's juggled all stuff, so she's a bit of a juggler. And somewhere in her corporate career, which was varied in media and accounting, she decided that she wanted to transcend and transform herself into her life's calling. And fast forward to a time when she then retrained as a counselor, self-help expert, a transformational soul coach, a Reiki master for nearly a decade now, and a chakra balancing specialist, as well as a powerful thought leader in her own right and a bit of a media personality. Please show your love for the one and only, definitely only, Sneha Ramji.
Thank you, Prash. Just to clarify, I do talk to people about their issues, but I'm not a trained counsellor. I'm a soul coach. So just FYI.
Well, Sneha, welcome. Thank you for being with us on the show. It's a delight to have you. And this is a subject that's close to a lot of people's hearts. And before we dive in and kind of get into the heart of this matter, I would firstly like you to just take a step back and take us back to what it was like being an immigrant here in the UK and where you came from.
Okay, so I was actually born some time ago in Africa, Tanzania, and lived my first 9 years there. And we came over in 1984.
Okay.
So it's been a while. Bit of a transition because we lived in a small village with no electricity, no running water, very simple life. I remember some of my childhood just being outside playing and not having any of the mod cons, television, none of these games or anything, just being very simple and basic. And then we were thrust into the metropolis of London, so it was quite a change.
So you moved here in whenever it was back in the day. You were young enough to remember Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
And old enough to remember the Backstreet Boys. I don't know, one of the two or the other way around. But you moved to London. You're an immigrant. What was that like? And what were some of the challenges that you faced that shaped your personality or perhaps damaged you or hurt you in some way?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I never see myself as an immigrant, but I guess I am because I wasn't born in this country. So that is
right.
Definition of immigrant. So, with all this negative connotations with immigration, but I was blessed and lucky to come here. However, it was a huge transition. You can imagine, I think I was about 9, and coming to this big city with lights and electronics. We didn't even have a television there, so it was a real change. The amount of people. We were from a really small it wasn't even a town. So yeah, shock to the system. I had to enroll into school. I had to live at my aunt's house, away from my parents, just because of circumstances. I had to change. Felt lonely. Felt I couldn't speak English.
Right.
I spoke, Gujarati and Swahili. It was a tough time, definitely very tough, to transit into a completely new culture, new school. Imagine at 9 having to face all that. Even though my parents tried, they were trying to do it for my benefit, but it was hard. But I'm grateful. I wouldn't be here sitting here talking to you today if I hadn't done that. It's
Right.
just the transition was difficult.
So I want to ask you, during those years, what key incidents had an impact on your self-esteem, on the shaping of your personality? And I'm kind of asking this because I know we've had this conversation before about bullying and some of the experiences that you had, perhaps parentally as well, things that perhaps were there or not there, and that may have shaped the way that you grew up and the way that you related to the world. Because folks, if you're listening in, let's always keep in mind that a lot of these challenges that we have, or limitations in loving ourselves or even loving other people, have their origins back in our past, either our own childhood or those of our parents even. And we kind of inherit those emotions. There's a lot of emotional inheritance going on here. And Sneha, I want to have you open up a little bit about that, please.
Well, I think it was a hard road, because obviously our parents, they all met really well, but they're different kind of parents to now. I was talking about somebody yesterday about this, that we were kind of left to it, and that's how parenting was. They came to a different country, they had to make their own way, they had to find jobs. So it was slightly lonely actually, and you go into a school and everybody, obviously they're young and they kind of point at you, you're different, you don't know English, they pick on you a little bit, and you just have to maneuver through it. You kind of at 9 don't have that mentality or equipment to deal with it. So what you do, you take it on, you think, you know what, there's something wrong with me, because everybody else is obviously on the other side. So you take that on board. And then being obviously middle child syndrome as well, you think like, I'm not special, there's an older brother, he's like the first one, and there's a younger sister, she's the youngest. So I always felt a bit of an outsider.
Right.
And obviously being a healer, being an empath, I didn't know then, but being empathic and very sensitive, I used to take all this internally and spend a lot of time on my own. I'm an introvert. I like my own company, believe it or not. I am an introvert. People going, really? I am. Yeah, there were times, I liked being alone, but it felt lonely as well. It felt like a very overwhelming experience to come into this huge new environment and to have all of these different circumstances. But you get through it and it makes you who you are. So in a sense, I'm grateful for those experiences, as hard as they were. Now, I don't think so much in the 20s or 30s, because it really impacted my self-esteem. I thought there was something not quite right about me. As a child, you start to make those decisions when people pick on you. And also at home, we had obviously trying to settle in. I didn't have that support. So I just made assumptions that it was me.
So let's just stretch that out a little bit. So from that childhood, what impact did that have on your ability to love yourself? Did you even appreciate the need to love yourself in those days? Because
no, I guess you just get on with it, right? You don't think about these things. And also, the environment was different. We're talking about 80s, 90s. I'm going to show my age now. Nobody really talked about feelings. You just kind of were stoic and you got on with it. And yeah, you don't think about self-love. I obviously thought there was something wrong with me, and there was a weight. Looking back now, I think I look at photos and I was fine, but for some reason I always felt overweight, chubby. I had, a very slim sister. People in my community, they used to compare me. They used to call me healthy. I remember a cousin once actually put me on the scales to see how much I weighed. And they would say, don't eat rice, don't eat potatoes. So you always felt like a bit of a, oh my God, I'm so fat. So, yeah, great lack of self-love there.
Folks, thank you, Sneha. And I want to just invite the audience here. Folks, you're listening in on this. I'd love it if you could, we're opening up here, Sneha's opening up. Please share something from your own life that you have felt was an area that you were neglecting inside yourself, whether that be, a lack of self-love about your body, a lack of self-love about your personality, or perhaps people told you when you were young that, you're not going to be anything when you grow up, that you're dumb. So maybe your intelligence was challenged. Let's open up and share this, because when you start getting this out there and recognizing what it was that people were projecting upon you or made you feel that you were lacking in yourself, then you can start to address it. And it's those areas invariably that we need kind of help with, right? I mean, it's like making a dish. Somebody makes a dish for you and you try it, and you need to try it in order to know whether it's lacking salt or chili or lemon or whatever it is. And therefore, speaking like this and exposing ourselves a little bit, making ourselves vulnerable and opening up about what we were perhaps missing in these years gone by. And it may be in our childhood, like Sneha saying, or what if it was in our teenage years, or even for many of us in our 20s and 30s, we still have these leftover residual projections from other people about things that make us feel that we're not lovable or we're not worthy of that love for ourselves. I'd love it if you would speak to that a little bit about Sneha, because we get the situation, many of us, I think, can relate. I know I can, that I feel sometimes I can't love myself. Maybe I don't deserve it. And sometimes I just feel that maybe I'm not a lovable kind of person. And I spent a lot of my 20s being that way.
Yeah, I'm similar. I guess also we were taught in our culture that loving ourselves is selfish. Like you have to give and give to other people. If you did a lot for yourself, it's very selfish. It was really drummed into us that it's selfless, like it's a good thing. And, the scriptures say about seva, serving others.
Right.
What they fail to tell you is that you have to fill your own cup, your own jar first. You can't serve from an empty place. They just focused on the service of others. So if you did anything for yourself, that'd be very selfish. So yeah, I spent 20s, 30s, and what happens with the universe is if you're giving that energy of brokenness, of not loving yourself, that message subliminally, the energy goes out to people, and the universe sends you situations to heal that. So conversely, people come to you that treat you like you're not lovable, so it reinforce that message, actually you're not lovable. So if I was dating in the early 20s, I would get guys that didn't like me, or they would just reinforce this idea that there's something wrong with you. And I always took it on myself, going, yeah, there must be something wrong. Like I got married really late, so that whole time I spent thinking maybe there is something wrong with me. And in our culture as well, somebody said to me, if I rejected somebody, have you looked in the mirror? So it was a very harsh upbringing. People made you feel like it's your fault. And I'm not blaming anyone. I think this isn't to share and go, let's blame people. It's more like just awareness, and also how people's words and everything, especially to kids, really shape who you are. These people maybe didn't know what they were doing at the time. It's the way it was. So I'm not blaming anyone. It's just, to kind of recognize what happened and how you get to where you were. What I say to people is that we have programming, a bit like, software. And you've got these people on this side, and they give you this program about yourself, who you are. They give you your identity, and it's societal, isn't it? It's from a young age.
Sure.
Your friends, your siblings, your family, your parents, your aunts and uncles, everybody tells you who you are or who you should be. And eventually you kind of change and you start to recognize. So what I'm saying is, don't take this thing that you've been programmed with. You can deprogram yourself and reprogram yourself to be lovable. We all are lovable. We're part of divinity. And society has taught us something completely different. I mean, look at the magazines, look at the ideals. They're all airbrushed. There's ridiculous bodies and, you know, perfect everything. They don't wake up looking like that. They've got a team of people that do their nutrition, train them. You know, they make a living out of looking good. And all these young girls think they're inadequate because they're trying to compete with that ideal. And it's very unrealistic.
So you touch on a really important point here, and I want to come back to that in a second. What I want to ask you is a definition. Let's get into the heart of the matter now, and let's really get into this, into the depths of this. What and how do you define self-love?
I would say self-love is taking care of yourself and put your own needs as a priority. I'm not saying ignore everybody else's or be selfish, but prioritize yourself. What I always say is, you know, that classic kind of analogy, if you're on the plane, you always have to give yourself oxygen before you can give to others. So make sure that you're filling your own reservoir full of love, because you can't love others. You've got nothing inside of you if you're trying to get love from outside. So the first person is yourself, and obviously, you know, your parents, your spouse, your kids, and love for divinity is all encompassing, but that includes yourself, because you're part of that divinity, you're part of that source. So never leave yourself out.
Okay, but a lot of people will say to that, and some people do, when people say, hey, I don't love myself enough, the criticism people get is they think it's selfish, right? So let's get clear here. How do we distinguish between self-love and selfishness?
Selfishness is egotistical narcissism, where you're trying to like put yourself first above others, or you tread on people to get to places, or you don't consider others in your decision making. Whereas self-love is actually encompassing everyone, treating everyone equally, including yourself. Because I think what some people do, I know that I have a lot of clients, particularly women, that put others above themselves. And, you know, it's selfless, and they people pleasers. And ultimately, they forget who they truly are. So you're not coming from an authentic place.
Right.
Selfishness is when you're not coming from an authentic place, you're trying to get ahead by trampling on others, whereas self-love is from a very authentic place where you love everybody equally, including yourself.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Self-love is heart-centered then. What you're saying is self-love is heart-centered, whereas selfishness is obviously ego-centered, right? It's about our desires and it's fulfilling ourselves.
Yes.
So given that definition that self-love is heart-centered, it is about taking care of ourselves. It is about filling our own cup before we try to fill somebody else. How do you balance trying to give yourself love whilst also tending to the demands that other people have of you in terms of giving them attention, giving them love, giving them time?
Well, we all struggle, don't we, in this kind of time poor society. We're all struggling, but then we find time to be on Facebook, and we find time to be on WhatsApp. So we need to kind of come back to ourselves. I say to people, clients, give yourself half an hour to an hour a day. We can all find it somewhere. And then you can do things that you enjoy, your soul enjoys. It could be reading, taking time out, you know, meditation, whatever your soul craves. Give yourself that time. You know, when I started the journey on self-love, I used to take myself out for lunch, and people are like, oh, you going by yourself? I go, yeah. I want to show myself appreciation, have a long bath, just do nice things, you know. It doesn't have to be a drudgery, and we all have responsibilities. But ultimately, we're here also to enjoy the physical experience of being in the body. Who's that? Sorry, there's a interference.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was my point. Sorry, there was a bit of a technical thing there.
All right, so let's talk about the importance of kind of finding that time to bring self-love to the table. How do you cultivate self-love? You touched on a little bit about it, but let's kind of bring that out. How do you cultivate self-love?
Okay, so first of all, I think it's to do with self-care. So, it takes discipline as well. So sometimes it's waking up a little bit earlier to go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's eating healthily. It's looking after yourself. It's, treating yourself to a haircut or highlights, or just being, nice to yourself, but also having the discipline of self-care. There's boundaries. We've got to have healthy boundaries with people. So you learn how to say no. A lot of people struggle with saying no because of lack of self-belief and self-love. They say no, that person may not love them. But that isn't true. I had to be taught that, because one person said to me once, "What if you said no?" And I was like, "I don't know. I've never tried it." So try saying no. Try and activate that muscle of, I can't do that right now. We did this on the retreat, and some of them said, "I can't. It's my mother-in-law. I can't say no." And I said, "Well, explain to her that maybe you can do something later."
Right.
We have to explain our feelings. We assume people know what we're thinking. Like, I used to run around after people, my parents, and I never explained to them that I dropped something to help them, or
Right.
my parents particularly. So I was seeing a therapist, actually, with this lack of self-love, and he said to me, explain to them that you've dropped this huge commitment to help them out.
Right.
So I started to do that. Well, guess what? They started to respect my time, because energy responds to energy. So if you start to show yourself, not respect, but that's the word I can get, respect for your own time, then other people start kind of picking up on your energy.
So are we talking about learning to say no here? It sounds a lot like learning to positively say no, right? One of the big failings, and I know I've been victim, and folks, if you're listening and can you resonate with this, then click in here, because I know a lot of people who have this issue. They have almost like a complete inability to say no to people. And then you end up becoming a people pleaser, or somebody who's just worn out because you just can't say no. So how important is that, to say no in a positive, non-egotistical way?
I think it's hugely important, because otherwise we just end up running around and being resentful. Sometimes it can backfire because you don't have time for yourself.
Right. So learning to say no with class, with a little tact, and especially in family situations, you need to learn to respectfully say no to situations or demands upon you from time to time. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we're saying respectfully. That's a really good word, because we don't want to be rude to people. We don't want
Right.
to break up friendships or relationships. We want to be like, I'm really sorry, I can't do that right now. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, because I have these commitments. So they understand why. You're not just, no,
Right.
I'm not going to do it, And you want to help people. We are all about, serving others and seva and helping, and, but it's not to the detriment of ourselves. That's where the boundaries come in as well. Sometimes if you have people that you give and give to, like energy vampires or toxic people, sometimes their reservoir, their hole is so big, you can keep filling it and keep filling it, and then they're
Right.
taking your energy, So there's a point where you just have to set that boundary and say no more. And it's painful. It's not an easy thing to do. People make you feel guilty and this, but ultimately we have to do it with compassion as well. But sometimes we've got to, look after ourselves, and then you can go back. Once you've kind of, gone back and sort of recharged yourself,
Yeah.
then you can go and give some more. But if you haven't got anything left, you're just going to end up being ill or miserable or resentful. And those are all negative sort of emotions and negative vibration. We're all about trying to raise our vibration.
Okay, so let me put this to you, and because this is urban spirituality, and a lot of our audience do have some kind of professional role or are entrepreneurs and have some kind of busy day job. How can you learn to say no and cultivate self-love in the workplace with a busy career?
Okay, that is a good question. I used to
I
be
know it's a
corporate.
good question because you used to be there.
Yeah, I used to be corporate. I worked for
Right.
BBC, ITV, so NBC Universal. That was a tough company. It's a
Right. And
US
just don't tell me that you got to leave all that to do that, right? Not everybody's going to become a Reiki master and
company.
a soul coach, right? Not everybody's going to jack in their jobs. Not everybody can, right? People may not necessarily be able to do that. How can you cultivate that self-love when you're in a busy, tough corporate lifestyle or a job?
Even at work, I think, again, I'm being a little bit, because I'm a woman, I think women are particularly bad at this. We try and do everything at work as well. But sometimes it's okay, I think, to say no, to
Hmm.
prioritize.
Hmm.
It's too much, speak to your boss. I used to do that, to say, manage people's expectations. You're not, superwoman or superman. You can't do everything, because a lot of us juggle, personal lives, kids, so much going on, and we're like trying to appear like a swan at work, where we're
Right.
kind of paddling underneath furiously. So it's good to share. Depends on your work. Some things are very competitive, I know, because I've been in those situations. And then maybe you have to change. Like at NBC Universal, it's a very tough environment, and it wasn't for me. So I left. I went to Football League, I think it was at the time. So you just, you have to work within your parameters, your
Hmm.
personality. I say to people, take a lunch break if you can, take half an hour. I
Right.
think most people
I
eat
think
at
that's
their
good
desk.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really unhealthy, because you're going to be more productive if you take that half an hour than if you ate your sandwich at your desk, because your brain will, reconfigure. Do a small meditation, maybe go for a walk in the park. Just get away from your desk for a bit. Have a little self time.
Okay. How can you, and it's a question that's been on my mind as well.
So,
How can you develop that self-love for yourself in a way that doesn't make it self-centered?
we're going to. I don't think I'm self-centered, and I've managed to cultivate. I'm very caring, very kind to people. I like to think so. But I have me time. I know when I need time to myself. I know when I need to, like, relax, switch off.
Right.
Then I go back and give more. I made it into a profession, actually. So then I have a very clear division of giving, home time, life, and so on. Because
Right.
people respect my time, like my customers. I don't expect anyone to call me at 11.
Right. So
I
this is
don't.
an important point, right? So, and we're getting a lot of comments right now on this. A lot of our viewers are talking about the importance of boundaries. I think that really resonates with people. So really, it sounds like setting boundaries is an important part of cultivating self-love. You got to have
Huge.
boundaries and learning to say no. Those two things worked well together, right? What you've just said, a great example. If you got a business or if you got clients, you know that there is a certain time after which you won't take calls because that's your time. It's your precious time. It's your me time, right?
Yeah, we have to have a cut off. Like in this industry, there's people's problems, and the problems don't stop, right? They come to you and they go home, and the problems carry on. At the beginning, I was taking people's calls, and then finally, it's not that I'm being selfish. It's I have to have boundaries, because I hear problems all day long. I can't take them on, right? Because I have a separate life to my work life. So I have to have a client, and I do. I really care about them. I give them my time, I give them my knowledge, and I give them healing. And then it's when they walk out the door, I've got to literally cut the cord. There's an exercise we do, energetic
Right.
cord, and that stops the energy that keeps flowing. And that's important for this topic as well. Self-love is about boundaries and cutting cords with people. As I said, people will, not everybody, but and I'm not judging people that need energy. They may be needing to work on themselves. I was that person. I was a needy person when I wasn't cultivating self-love. I was trying to get it from everybody else, and I was trying to get it from outside.
Right.
So there's people around you that's probably in that situation.
Yeah.
Ask them, to get help, or try and give them these techniques, meditation, connecting back to source. there's so much material nowadays. Louise Hay is really good. You can heal your own life. And there's
Yeah,
people
great
like us.
resource.
Yeah, like myself, you can come and see me. I do soul coaching and I teach self-love. There's things on my website. So there's so much information. You don't have to be there for every single person, because if you have a healing energy, people, you know, like an empath and you're sensitive, people will come to you naturally. They'll be drawn
Yeah.
to you. They'll want to give you their problems because, you know, you're good at sort of feeling and being empathetic. But you can't take on the problems of the world.
All right. So I want to touch on that because a couple of questions that have been coming in here from the live, and I think there's some really good questions. Priya's asking, if setting boundaries and saying no puts pressure on a relationship, how do you overcome that? And that's the thing, right? You know, you're in a relationship, romantic or otherwise, and, you know, therefore there is that intrinsic care, affection, love, obligation that you have for one another. Some could say a certain amount of dependency emotionally or financially between two people, and then you still got to say no. How do you work with that? How
I
to
think
say
your
no?
partner, I think you have to have that open dialogue with your partner. And sometimes you can't do certain things for your partner and they have to understand. I mean, it's a two-way street, isn't it? Like sometimes you allow your partner to say no to you and you say no. This isn't no for the sake of saying no. This is no
Right.
because you're cultivating that self-love within a relationship. And I think if you have the right partner, they will understand that you need your own space, you need your own time.
So I
But if
think it
you
goes back to what you said, you know, and if I may say so, really what we're saying is it's not just about setting boundaries. And folks, I know a lot of you are saying that. Charles, Amit, Hunter, some really good points coming in here on the live at the moment. Really, really good points. Priya, Parul, Sanj, everybody who's joined in here bringing up some great points, and we can't read them
sorry,
all
I
out.
can't see them because I'm on
But
Zoom. But
Pooja, there's some really
I
good
love
points. I
observation.
think what I'm reading here from the comments is that there's a unified agreement that there have to be boundaries. But I
Yes.
think side by side with boundaries, I think there need to be some ground rules. So I would say, you know, when you're talking about any kind of relationship, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship or a work relationship, a professional relationship. There have to be certain ground rules. And I think you've really nailed it right there, Sneha. You need to be upfront from the beginning. You know, if you, for example, take a new role, or you're going to be working with a new bunch of people at work, or, you know, you're in a relationship with somebody, you don't have to be all formal, right? And you don't have to say to somebody you've just met and dated for 4 weeks, hey, let's have some ground rules here. I never take calls after 9 o'clock. Don't ever call me. I will never pay for dinner. Yeah, you don't need to do that. But you can kind of have an honest and organic conversation to say, hey, look, you know, everybody's different. We all have our own buttons that we do not like pressed, and we all have our boundaries and limitations. Why don't we discuss those, and we can then actually work together to actually appreciate and recognize each other's boundaries and each other's ground rules. And I think when you convey your ground rules to somebody in an authentic and a respectful, non-egotistical and non-threatening way, you stand the best chance of setting powerful and yet healthy boundaries that allow you to then say no when you need to and get love when you need to.
Yeah, that is right. I mean, I think maybe, as you said, maybe not be too formal about it. We call it
Right.
ground rules. You don't call it ground rules. You just have an open-hearted conversation. You know, we began this conversation about what self-love is, talking from the heart. It's being authentic. I think people hide authenticity in relationships with spouses, with other people. They try to be the person the other person expects them to be. There's only so long you can keep that up for before resentment starts to build up.
Completely.
So
Yeah.
when you go to a relationship, I think Anthony Robbins says you go to give in a relationship, and that's correct.
Right.
But you can't, you know, it's got to be equal balance. So you give,
Of
you
course.
give, you give. But there's a point where you have to receive in terms of your own nurturing, your own soul. People lose themselves in relationships as well because they make it all about the other person and they forget who they truly are. Because when you love somebody and you're kind of maybe easygoing, they like football, you start watching football. They like this, you start doing that. Eventually you forget what your own identity is. What is it that makes your soul sing? What makes you happy?
Right. Totally.
what are you passionate about? What are you here to do? You know, we talked about it on the podcast that we all have a soul purpose. Our partners and our kids and people in our lives, they help us to achieve some of the soul purpose, but ultimately it's up to us. We need to connect back to that soul purpose. Otherwise we don't live a fulfilled life. So sometimes it's, you know, it could be having a child or getting married is part of your soul purpose, but it's not the whole of your purpose. And people sometimes make that the whole of their world.
Yeah,
But if you
completely.
think about it, your kids grow up, they leave to go to college or uni. Sometimes the husband and you may get divorced, or the husband or the wife may die.
Right.
Nothing is forever. We can't rely on the external love to keep us going. And a lot of people tend to do that. We need to go to the internal and cultivate that love. And we haven't touched on this so much, but it's going back to who you truly are, to connect with source. And, you know, I teach meditation because when you meditate, you really go back into who your natural personality is, your authentic self, and you link back to source. So you have to cultivate self-love. You have to do work on yourself. I go on about like the spiritual journey is about really getting to know who you are and accepting who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love is not just all, you know, about all the good things. We have light and dark. So Carl Jung talked about your shadow self, and we all have that within us. And part of this journey is accepting that, is accepting the dark and the light.
I think that's a very valid point, because we don't accept those imperfections that we have. Is it not case, and folks, you know, I'm sure some of you can relate to this, that sometimes we've put ourselves on a pedestal that's so high that it causes us to suffer, and yet the pedestal wasn't even put by ourselves. It was other people whose words and whose words were so important to us, upon whose words we place so much value and meaning, that has caused us to build a pedestal for ourselves that we just can't achieve. And I think you've hit the nail on the head again, Sneha, that if we're placing ourselves in that kind of level of pedestal, we're trying to seek some kind of internal perfection. Who the hell are we trying to please here? Are we trying to please us? Are we trying to please our parents? Are we trying to please, you know, our lover? And in doing so, we're losing ourselves. We're actually diluting the very essence of who we are. I mean, that's shitty. That should never, ever happen.
It happens all the time, because, you know, I was talking about this side where society, which includes everybody in our lives, the prominent people, parents, spouses, relationships,
Right.
They put the programming into us, and we call it head tapes. A client of mine calls it this, and that tape keeps playing. And you may be going to a relationship, I'm unlovable, and that energy goes out. That person treats you like, oh, you're unlovable. Oh, this is true, I am unlovable. And it continues. And it's such a shame, and it's so sad that you live your life because other people have told you who you are. Whereas actually, you know, you are a child of God and you are full of divinity. And we just need to link back to that. And as I said, we all have good and bad. We have jealous thoughts, we have good thoughts, we have bad thoughts. As long as we're not acting on anything and, you know, we're trying to be a good person, we all are working towards being a good person, it's okay. You just have to accept all of that, who you are, and you are a shape and a product of society. And that's why you have to be honest with yourself. I think it starts with authenticity and honesty.
It does. I think it has to start with self-honesty. Hansa made a good point here. She says women still today feel it's not their place to communicate, that they will put their soul first and then give to a guy. So, and I would just say, yes.
I laugh because, I know. You know, I'm laughing because I think it's so not fair, because we have been, especially not in Indian culture, but a lot of cultures, that women are sort of inferior. And
right. So what we're saying, and this is exactly the curse and the conditioning that I think people like us who are listening to this show, all of us collectively on this program right now, and those of us who listen to this, I think the responsibility is on us. It's the onus is on us to help to decondition that, to help show a better way. Because here's the simple thing, guys, we're missing one thing, and I say guys in particular. If if the ladies in our life don't feel or have the opportunity to love themselves, how can you expect the best out of them? Hell, how can you expect the best out of you and the best you to show up for somebody when you can't love yourself? And it's a disease for guys, because guys love themselves in a kind of egotistical way, but that
Yeah.
authentic love, that authentic, you know what, I'm not perfect, but I'm aspiring to be a caring father, husband, lover, boyfriend, son, whatever it is. That authentic acknowledgement of uh, one's good traits, like you say, seeing the good inside yourself, and yet at the same time accepting that, yeah, I wake up late, I smell, I do this, I do that, I have bad habits. That genuine, authentic acceptance, I think, is the pathway to self-love. You're almost like clearing out the obstacles that are standing between you and your own self-love. When you start getting authentic, I think that's so powerful, you know?
Yeah, with any program, if you're like an addict or anything, you have to admit it before you can deal with it.
So we take authenticity, that helps self-love. Which is saying a really good point here. So many of us don't even explore what our boundaries are in the first place. Only when they've been overstepped do we start to reflect. So
Yeah.
it's important to know what our limitations are in the first place, so we have the confidence to set them up. And I think that goes back to what we said, boundaries and ground rules. And we'll go through a little summary of that in a little bit. Great point by Sanj here. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness, concern, and support that you actually show to a good friend. When faced with difficult life struggles or confronting personal mistakes, you should recognize that imperfection is a part of the human experience. I think that's really powerful, you know?
Yeah, it's true. As I said, we all have the shadow self. And I think that people have to take responsibility as well. That after 18, we can't blame others. When you're young, you can't have those discerning thoughts. But after 18, we have to take responsibility. Yeah, you may have had a tough childhood
Yeah.
or whatever. So if you're not quite where you need to be, and you're watching this, I guess, because you want to cultivate some self-love or are interested in this topic, so we need to take responsibility for our journey and recognize the good and bad within us. Then we can move forward. We can have those conversations and say, do you know what? I have actually maybe not cultivated self-love, and maybe some of the things I've been doing have been out of ego, or
Right.
maybe some of the practices haven't been what they should be. We all do it, no? We procrastinate, we don't look after ourselves, but we've got to do a check-in with ourselves to say, where are we? Are we going in the right direction?
Right.
Don't give ourselves a hard time as well, because some people, you know, the other way, they're too on it. They're like, yes, I've got to achieve, like people like Robbie Williams and people like that. They're overachievers because they just push and push and push and push. Where sometimes you just got to accept it's fine. You don't have to be better, do better every single day. One day you can have an off day. So self-love is just recognizing what is it that you need at this point, and don't try and achieve to prove something to these people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's a lot to do with that. We do spend too much time trying to prove stuff to other people when actually it has to come through to oneself. So you do need to take it back in. Everything we're talking about, again, just points to this thread, I think, for me now, that, you've got to go back in. You've got to go back in yourself, recognize and acknowledge the kind of stuff that you have within yourself, being authentic and accepting that, and then going about to establish the ground rules and boundaries that you want to have in your life with other people, which, of course, guys, this is a fluid world, right? So boundaries and ground rules may change as we change as a person, but I think it's just raising them, getting them out there, and then working with authenticity, not only for maintaining our boundaries, but respecting others, right? Let's talk about that for a moment. When we come across people who are not loving themselves, what do you regard, Stan, as the best advice you can give to somebody to help them to love themselves? The top self-care tips.
Wow. We talked about some of it already in terms
Sure.
of, yeah. So I think keep a journal. That's a really helpful tip. I really enjoyed doing that when I was going through the journey. Affirmations. Again, if you Google, there's so many on the internet. We could possibly share some, but just I love and approve of myself. I see myself as a loving being. I
Of
love my
course.
body. just record them on your phone and just play them back to yourself. Meditation. I think when you meditate, as I said, you go back to your own source, and your source is love. Chakra balancing, that helps to balance the solar plex. That's where your self-esteem resides, and the heart chakra, obviously,
Right.
self-love. So just various activities that you can partake in. But first of all, just start giving that time to yourself, so you can work on yourself. Without time, you can't do any of this. So
Right.
whenever a client comes to me and we talk about self-love, we're like, give yourself half an hour to an hour a day, maybe more at the weekend, and just be me time. And you can make this happen. Like, people say, oh no, I just can't do it, mother-in-law, kids, responsibilities. But if you really look at your day, you can find that half an hour, because that half an hour will make you more productive, more loving. Half an hour to an hour will change your life. It's worth the investment. So we need that time to think and reanalyze and, ask these questions. Otherwise, we're just going to be lost in the busyness. Busyness is the new addiction, isn't it?
Right.
Everyone's too busy. You talk to anyone nowadays, what have you been up to? Oh, I'm just so busy. We all do it, I think. And we're hiding from ourselves. Like, I think I did a video on self-love, and I was talking about how we hide in food, we hide in alcohol, we hide in addiction, or we hide in even the smallest things, like watching excessive TV. I have some clients who just procrastinate, and that is a lack of self-love again, because you're not trying to achieve your ambitions, your dreams, and looking after yourself. You just out of the game by just watching constant TV or gaming, or
We totally do that.
So you hide from yourself again, don't you?
So I think that's an important point as well. Self-help self-love doesn't necessarily mean losing yourself in your favorite TV shows or games or other stuff, because that could be distraction. So I think it's important to make a distinction between watching a TV show or chilling out and, I don't know, playing a computer game or reading a book because you want to do that to nourish yourself, versus doing that because you want to escape from something. I think that's a major thing that we need to be aware of, that that's not self-love then. That's just escapism. You just want time to run away, right? You're not trying to, and let's get this right? Self-love is about running towards yourself, not running away from yourself.
Completely. So you may think, oh, I'll have a cake. That's self-love. Okay, that's fine occasionally. But if you have that cake every single day, that isn't self-love. That's just like kind of addiction.
Sure.
If you watch a TV program, here and there to switch off, that's fine. But if you watch hours and hours every day, again, you may be putting it under the banner of nourishing yourself, but that's when we talked about self-care at the beginning. It takes discipline as well. Love for yourself takes discipline. To go to the gym, to eat that salad, to say no to people. There's tough choices to be made. Self-love isn't just like, oh, everything's going to be an easy decision.
Love that, yeah.
Yeah. It's tough love, tough self-love.
Yeah, tough self-love. I love that subject. I think that's a subject in itself, to be tough and be able to recognize that discipline and sometimes enduring something that's uncomfortable is still part of self-love, right? So I think going to the gym or working out or doing some kind of strenuous physical activity is a good example of self-love, because you may not necessarily want to do it, but you know that actually that discipline is actually bringing future happiness. People think that discipline equals misery, but actually discipline equals happiness, because when you have discipline, you have the courage to stand up and say, I control my future, I control my destiny. And you stop blaming your parents, your siblings, your past, your old workmates, your school friends who used to bully you. You stop blaming other people at some stage. For fuck's sake, we're over 18 years old now. Folks, we need to take responsibility. This is the message that has to come through. If any of us aren't getting this, we got to get that. We have to recognize that it's with us, right? As you said, there has to be a point. You stop blaming people on your past and your situation, and recognize that you have the capability and power to do something about it now. Take control, take ownership of that. And as you say, exercise discipline, apply discipline in your life, get tough a little bit to get soft inside yourself.
Yeah, it takes delayed self-gratification. There's a really good book called a road less traveled, and it talks about gratification. So sometimes you have to invest in the future. So if you eat cake right now and keep eating cake, it's going to block your arteries, it's going to lead to disease, it's going to lead to unhappiness. So
Right.
you're not doing self-care, right? So yes, and taking responsibility, the buck does stop with you, because you're a soul and you have an individual journey. And when you go back up after you die, you have a life review, and you have to answer to yourself and to God, depending on whichever belief. They talk about this in Islam, they talk about it in different religions, that once you go up, you have a life review. So you have responsibility for that life. You know, I say to people, God will go, what did you do with your life, Sneha? I watched a lot of TV, I didn't, do much. Or are you going to say, yeah, I actually cultivated discipline, I loved myself, and
Hmm.
I achieved the dharma, the sole purpose of coming down here in this incarnation. So the buck stops with you. When you go up there, you can't say, my parents, my this, my that.
No, it's got to be right here.
And the thing is, in this, in the UK or the US or the Western world, we have all the resources. In Africa, I didn't have anything, but here we've got the internet, we've got books, we've
We've
got
got that
so
all
much.
right.
We've got people like us who run retreats, and we have one-to-one sessions. There's so much availability of help that it may take time as well. Don't give yourself a hard time. Don't go the other way. I'm still messed up, and it takes a while. I say to people, it took 30, 40 years for you to get here. It's not going to
Where
change
you are,
overnight.
yeah, you're not going to change overnight. I think that's massive. And, if I may speak for myself, I know that I think for me, part of giving love to myself, with the childhood and the upbringing that I have, where I felt perhaps I lacked a certain amount of love from people around me, and somehow I couldn't give it to myself. I was reaching out to get love. Having lost, my mum early and so forth, I think I missed out on that love, and I kept reaching out for it. And it took a long time to recognize that part of self-love is actually going and getting some therapy, going out, spending time getting some therapy or counseling with people who can help you to coalesce and to make sense of what has happened in your past, in order to allow you to pave the way for self-love to happen. So folks, don't be shy. I think it's a big taboo, especially in the Asian, Indian community, to seek help from people. It's like, like there must be something mentally wrong with this person, or it's almost like you're considered an outcast just for going and getting a therapist or hypnotherapist, counselor, coach, whatever it is. Actually, it's the furthest from the truth. Top performers in society for so many, many years have had their own therapists or counselors or coaches, right? Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Zig Ziglar, Richard Branson. All of these successful persons have had some sort of coaching, counseling, therapy. Most of them have had in their lives, and therefore it's actually to be praised and to be commended that people actually do that, because that is self-love. It's tough love, I think, as you say, Sneha. It's tough love, because you don't necessarily want to pay 50, 60, 70, 100 pounds to somebody to go and talk about your stuff. But actually talking that through and investing that money is going into yourself, right? Again, that's self-love, giving money to yourself, not just buying a handbag and a subscription to Netflix.
What happens is you have resistance as well. So I've had people that, tell me their problems, and I go, go and see a therapist who will help you. No, I can't afford it, and it's resistance. This is a proper investment in yourself. Do you want to invest
Totally.
in yourself? You can go on holiday to exotic. I used to do this, right? Exotic destination, spend £800,000 easily. This is an investment. You're going to change your way of thinking. I went when I was in my 20s, and I'm not embarrassed about it, because I say, if you break your hand, you're going to go to the doctors. You're not going to try and fix it yourself. So if there's something about you that's not quite right up there, your brain is not processing
Completely.
it. And it doesn't mean, you're mentally ill or whatever. Some of us are. Mental illness is such a taboo. People are starting to talk about it now. But if you've had hard time, or if you've had trauma, it's going to impact you. It's like having a broken hand or a finger. You're going through life with an injury, and there's experts who can fix it for you, and you're trying to fix it yourself. So there's no embarrassment in if you need to like I don't know, train for a marathon, you might go and see a personal trainer. If you need your teeth done, you go to the dentist.
Go.
Go and see
Yeah.
somebody, to go and see somebody who can fix your pattern of thinking. For me, it's a no-brainer.
I think that's massive. I think, folks, if you're listening in, and I got to say it because you live this now, this is what you do. You gave up a corporate career, a successful corporate career, paying reasonably good salary, and you not threw it all away. You gave it all up because you felt that your calling was to convey these powerful messages to people, to empower people to be able to become their best selves by investing in themselves, to have that self-love. And I think that if there's one message, people, that you can take away from this, if you take nothing away from this live call, take away the importance of investing in yourself by seeing somebody who is a trained therapist, counselor, coach, somebody who can help you, as you say, Sneha, very rightly, to get yourself into a better state. That's money that is pricelessly well spent.
Completely, because I gave up a career in media. Like, I worked for BBC, ITV, and people are like, oh my God, you gave that up for this? Because I went from here, earning wise, to there. But you know why I did it? Because I went through that journey of lacking self-love, of loneliness, of not making the most of my life, not pushing the envelope, not because I was too afraid and too insecure and too this and, you know, playing too small. And by seeing these experts, and I spent a good 10 years, if not more, reading and seeing, and I still read and still see people, and I still get healing myself, because I think it's a never-ending journey, is investing in yourself. You know, people pay $8,000 to go see Anthony Robbins. Why? Because
Right.
they're
Yeah.
investing in themselves. And it pays dividends, because when you invest in yourself, that money you can make back easily, because you have that self-belief. You're in line with your values, you're in line with the universe, you believe in abundance, it will pay itself back, you know. So yeah, definitely self-investment is the way to go.
Yeah, I would give this example, folks, if I may, Sneha, you know, from my personal experience, and to everybody listening. Have any of you gone and invested in your own property, or moved into a place, a house or a flat, apartment, whatever it is, and then decorated it, and then found that while decorating it, you needed to spend a little bit more, and you thought, you know what, this is going to be the place I'm going to be living in for the next 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years. So it's okay. I'm going to spend a little bit more and get this house, this apartment, to the way I want it, right? Nobody thinks twice about doing that. We all have that experience, and many of us probably will have that experience when we move into our own place. We want to do it real nice. So guess what? We have to live in this body with this mind and this consciousness for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Some of us 20, some of us more. We all got to live in it for a number of decades. Surely we should apply the same generous yet well discerning consideration in investing in ourselves, just like we do with a house. We got to live in this vessel after all. So we should invest money in ourselves, whichever way it is, but with discretion. Nobody's asking us to plunder that money away, but, you know, seeing a counselor, a therapist, investing in programs, reading books, and in buying books and studying them. I think all of those valuable things are investing in our inner space.
Totally agree. And you know, I made a decision to do this because I wanted to share the journey I've been. And I like to say, not that, you know, I don't have ups and downs and
Sure.
challenges, but I am a living proof of this works.
You are living proof. I mean, giving yourself, you're a living proof that this works. There are so many people who have benefited from your coaching, from your advice, your guidance. And there are others I know who are walking a parallel path. Pooja, Kalpana with her laughter yoga, Pooja with her own healing, Manju. There are so many others here, Reina, who are doing this and walking their path. And I think this is the point here, that we need more people to empower themselves, invest in themselves, but then not be selfish, but be self-loving, and then give that love back. I think I see it as I see this as the example of we should be like solar panels, right? We take in, we give ourselves love. take in that energy that we need, and then we radiate that love back, you know? So when you fill your cup up and you give yourself that self-love, you're charging your inner solar panel, your radiators are being charged, your batteries are being charged, and then you got something to give back out to people, as you're doing, Sneha, as so many people out there, Viraj, so many others are giving that love back out to the community. And that's Jesus, that's what we need. You know, the world needs more of that. The world doesn't need another TV drama. The world doesn't need another Hollywood movie and another superhero series and another new mobile phone. What the world needs is people to love their damn selves more. And put aside the bullshit excuses about loving yourself, about time and money and this. Love yourself and then go love other people better. I'm getting all passionate at the end of
Yeah,
this interview because it's so true. We're not doing it enough. Sneha, tell them something as we wrap up.
it's all about love, isn't it? And I've always believed that it's all about love, and that's all you're going to take with you. You're not going to take the flashy car or the phone.
You ain't gonna take none of that stuff.
It ain't going to come in your coffin. I'm sorry to say, nothing ain't going to come in your coffin.
But that time we invest in ourselves and give back out, I think that's massive. You know, that will come.
You're going to take, you know, your bhakti, as in your sadhana, the practices you have, like meditation, prayers, the knowledge, and the investment in yourself and the self-love and loving others. That's all you're going to take with you. Everything else is superfluous. So
Completely,
people
man.
spend so much time on the superfluous stuff and they forget we have a limited time on the planet. We think it's going to go on forever, but as this incarnation, we have about 80 years.
That's it.
That's it. So we've got to get on with it.
Love it. I love it. Absolutely. So now I'm going to share some summaries. I've got some summaries here, and I've got here, and thanks for this, Kalpna. Keep a journal, positive affirmations, chakra balancing, meditation, prayer, whichever form that prayer happens to take for you, yoga, exercise, something that's going to give you discipline, that demands discipline, walking in nature, get connected with nature. Don't forget to laugh. All of these are fantastic examples of giving yourself self-love, investing in yourself, as we've discussed. And affirmations.
Forgiveness, forgive ourselves, forgive others, letting go.
It's got to start with ourselves, right? So forgive ourselves first before we can do anything else. Got to start with ourselves.
Yeah, letting go emotions and situations. They're done now. They're in the past. Move on. People
Absolutely.
have a lot of things, and that degrades us as well, and that's not loving ourselves.
And talking of not loving ourselves, folks, for many of you who are listening to this, you'll be celebrating the festival of Navratri, Garba as they call it, right? So I have a little, I've come up with this little acronym that I think will help us remember the essence of this session. We've just talked about the top self-care tips, and we've gone through a summary of those. But let me say this is the season of Navratri coming upon us, as you know, in the Indian calendar. So I've come up with this little one, Garbas. Garbas. G for ground rules. A for authenticity in your communications. And as you said rightly, Sneha, not only authenticity with other people, but with ourselves, being authentic to ourselves. R for respectfulness, respecting yourself and helping people to respect your boundaries, getting people to understand that you have your boundaries and respecting them. And R is also for responsibility, taking responsibility for yourself and not blaming your background, shedding that blame game for your past, and recognize that the present is in your hands and your future can be shaped by that. So R for respectfulness and responsibility. B for boundaries. We talked about that extensively. Establishing boundaries for others and for our inner selves, things that we won't let ourselves sell ourselves short of. And then finally, A for appreciation. As you said rightly, self-appreciation, showing kindness to oneself and recognizing one's accomplishments, one's talents, one's ability. So Garba. Guys, you have it right there. Garba, the season of Navratri. Hopefully you remember this. Sneha, any final words from yourself? And also, can you tell us what's on your radar? Any projects or any events that you've got coming up that people can come and learn more about, please?
Okay, so I've got some exciting news. It's launched actually, so people can go on it today. It's called SnehaRamji.com. It's my new website.
SnehaRamji.com as the name, right? That's a launch today. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm still ray of light, but the website is now called Sneha Ramji because I'm doing more coaching and combining coaching with some very unique. I do coaching, meditation, and Reiki together, and it's a great combination. There's lots of testimonials on recommendation and on my website, so check out the website. And we should have Reiki coming up soon. So again, look on the website, Reiki classes and chakra balancing classes.
So this is an opportunity for people to take the Reiki course, to actually learn to become skilled in the practice of Reiki, which is an ancient tradition. And that's coming up, and the details will be on your website, right?
Coming soon. I think it'll be the end of September now. And
okay.
Reiki is invaluable. That's also, I didn't mention it today. There was a lot to talk about, but it completely.
We'll have another session.
Yeah, 9 years ago.
9 years ago, your journey started. Okay, what else have you got cooking what else have you got cooking on a weekly basis?
So we have then Tuscany Retreat, which is on the 11th.
Wait. What's happening on Mondays? Tell us about your Monday.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think Mondays are amazing.
Mondays.
We have meditation every Monday in North Harrow, going now for nearly 4 years. We have some amazing people that come. We have a great time. We talk about spiritual subjects. We cover things like self-love and jealousy and healing and tarot and all sorts. So every Monday, 8 till 9:30, North Harrow. You can DM me for details. And then we've got Tuscany, which
Tuscany Retreat. Yay!
So I'm going to be teaching. Prash is going to be teaching. We have other wonderful teachers and yoga and martial arts and Florence and just amazing things. So
we're going to have lots of cool things happening in Tuscany. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Chandni, Manju, Amisha, welcome. There's so many people still tuning in. I think it's just a joy. Can I just take a moment here? Can I just take a moment now to acknowledge all the talented, unique, and good-hearted individuals who are listening to this show 1 hour or something into the show, and they're still here.
Wow, you've got patience. In a minute.
I want to acknowledge everybody who's here, because you've taken time to listen, because hopefully there's something here that you felt that could benefit you. And we hope that, and I think, and I speak for you, I hope I speak for you here, and I say this, that I think as fellow light workers, you and I and so many other light workers listening to this, I think it's our mutual and universal wish that the wisdom that you're learning here can help to transform your approach and attitude to self-love, but then in turn, be a flame and light other people's desire for self-love. Find out people in your family, in your friend circle, people who you feel may be showing signs that they're not loving themselves, either because they're working too hard, they're hating themselves, they're hating life, they're down on people, they're down on their luck, they're greedy, they're selfish, they think they're fulfilled. All of those categories of people, go show them some love, teach them some self-love. And I think if we can all do that, that can make a powerful transformation and carry on this great work that you're doing, Sneha, in your capacity.
Yeah, if you like something about somebody, if they're wearing a nice dress or if they look nice, obviously within appropriateness.
Share some love.
Yeah.
Help them to learn self-love.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that. We project some of our things. And if you're projecting as well, look out for that. If you're feeling like not having a great day, try not to project to others. And be nice and be kind and be loving and be a light worker. We need more light.
We need more light workers. And guys, if you're listening, we need more guys doing this stuff. This is not exclusively for ladies. Self-love and all these soft things are not just for ladies, okay? This is for us. So all the guys who are listening, special kudos to you guys for sticking around and listening to this, because, geez, if there's one species on this planet who need to learn some self-love and learn to see their softer side, it's men. The world over, man. If men can learn to love themselves properly, authentically, they would be nicer partners, nicer husbands, nicer sons, fathers. So much can happen if we can teach this and learn this. Because I think it's massive that we're doing this. So really big kudos to everybody who's tuned in. And as Sneha says, you can check her out doing her thing in London at any of her workshops and seminars. And Sneha, hopefully we're going to have you doing all of this live in Tuscany in about a month's time in the middle of the mountains in near the beautiful city of Florence. And you'll be doing some live workshops, hopefully, there.
Yeah, totally. We cover subjects like this, you know, our thinking, positive or negative thinking, self-love. We'll have new topics. We have meditation, chakra balancing. We have pranayam. So we do quite a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So folks, if you haven't already done so, check out Sneha's website, sneharamji.com. Check out the Mantra Therapy website, mantratherapy.co.uk, where you will find all the details of our retreat in Tuscany in a month's time. It's supporting a fantastic Italian charity in the heart of Florence, in the heart of the Tuscan region. We'd love you to come along, be with us, support yourself, invest in yourself. Check out mantratherapy.co.uk for details. And one humble request, if I may, Sneha set up a new website. She's got a fantastic group on Facebook. Sneha, tell us your group.
So my group is called Creating Abundance and Spiritual Upliftment. Manju really helps. She's on, so thank you, Manju. And we put quotes and articles, and I'm going to start Facebook Lives again from next week, probably on a Tuesday. So I'll confirm that. So try and join that. And
absolutely.
So what was I going to say? Just kind of, yeah, I'm going to offer free consultations. So people that are new to me, that we've not had any interaction, if anyone watches this afterwards, there's a form on my website. Just fill that in. You can get free meditation, free consultation. Give me a shout.
That is, I couldn't have said it better. You know, from and being an immigrant to being bullied, to being to working in environments which were chock full of men, and you being the only lady, to having friends who are turned out to be not really good friends at all, through relationships and dates and failed, all kinds of things. You've turned out to be the healer that you are, and you are truly living proof that one can live their purpose and their passion without having to be out on the streets, without having to beg for a living, but to live with nobility and honor and help people around you. And I think that is what the world needs more of. We all can learn from that and aspire from that. So thank you, Sneha, for being with us. Your name, Sneha, and for those of you who are listening, the word Sneha, please tell them what the word Sneha means.
It means love.
It means love, love and deep perfection. The word Sneha comes from Sanskrit. So Sneha, thank you for being the embodiment of that and sharing that on this show tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for listening, and we hope to see you or interact with you soon. Lots of love to all of you.
Thank you so much, folks. And I may humbly request you, if you haven't already done it, please leave a like on the Mantra Therapy page and leave a little 5-star review or some kind of high-star review. If you're liking what we're doing, please support us. We do this. It takes energy and passion to do it, and we do it because we care, and we like to have a laugh as well. So please show some love. Check out Sneha's page and check out the Mantra Therapy page on Facebook. Like it, leave some reviews, and that will help us grow and spread this message. Please be a part of this change and share, and we'll see you on the next episode, and we can't wait to see you then. Peace out. Namaste.